Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedComms networking.com. So services, information, resources, activities for the global MedComms community, by which I mean people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses. Importantly, we provide a lot of information for people who want to know more about MedComms, maybe from the point of view of getting a job in the business, in medical writing, and so on and so forth. You'll find a lot of resources at firstmedcommsjob.com. And these webinars are a great way of involving people from all over the world and talking about all sorts of interesting topics. We've got a good international audience again today. We're running them regularly, and you'll find recordings over at NetworkPharma TV, where there's now 400 plus videos, recordings of webinars like this and other sorts of video content. So lots of content to go and have a look at all around the MedComms business. Today, I'm absolutely delighted that we've got the guys from Inizio coming in to talk about what they've been doing. The branding was launched last week. It's bringing together a lot of MedComms people under one umbrella. I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm going to hand over to Elaine and ask you to tell us what you're up to, and then we'll have a Q&A after your presentation. So members of the audience, be ready to talk to us via the text boxes and ask your questions. Over to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for hosting us, and welcome to everyone. And again, thank you for joining. It really is an exciting time as medical agencies and professionals working in medical agencies. It's a really exciting time for us. The industry's changing like I've never seen it change before. And certainly when we're thinking about what's happening for us as Inizio, it is the best time. There's no better time for us to come together, all of the assets and companies across UDG and Huntsworth, to create a really unique, only type of platform that we now have as Inizio. We are a group of individuals who have got real depth, not just within MedComms, but also medical agencies, and huge passion and enthusiasm. And I guess as a team and your panelists today, we all share the same ambition. It's not only around maximising the opportunity for our business, but it's around doing something that alone as our individual companies we would never have been able to do, and we take that commitment, that duty of care as it were, really seriously, and we have an opportunity that by the end of our careers we can hopefully pass something on to the next generation that is different, transformed. And some of the stories, some of the anecdotes that we're still hearing from our industry, where people might not know about medical communications as a career, many of us have fallen into it as it were. Hopefully when we finish, that won't be the case, and it really is, it's a fabulous career. And I think we all are thankful that we've had the opportunities, but it's for us now to ensure that we use our scale, that we use our strength and power to ensure as many people come into this industry and really benefit and enjoy the types of careers available to them. So it's something that we really share and are passionate about. And as Inizio, we have that opportunity. It really is our time. So I'm joined today with two colleagues from Inizio Medical. Moving forward. So I'm joined with Dan Bridges and Andrew Davidson, and together we will walk you through, we'll introduce you to Inizio and share with you what that platform is. We'll also share with you a bit more in depth around the medical part of the organisation, and really importantly to share not just our commitment, but also the key areas that we can contribute and really lead on from the industry perspective, looking at it in terms of enabling careers for individuals and really furthering our profession, our industry moving forward. So what is Inizio? We have organised, so bringing together the different companies across UDG and Huntsworth, and organised ourselves across 5 different divisions. We have Inizio Advisory, real heavy-hitting consultancy brands in Putnam, STEM, Dynamic, and most recently Research Partnerships, bringing together a really strong powerhouse, global powerhouse in management consultancy advisory services for the pharmaceutical industry. We have Inizio Medical that Dan will talk about in more depth shortly. Inizio Marketing Communications, and really there you've got the whole family of Evoke agencies and brands, combining the strength of Ashfield's Health and also the legacy Huntsworth organisations. And then we have Inizio Medical, Inizio Engage, which is really your full end-to-end commercialization organization, everything from patient engagement, events, commercialization, virtual field forces, and so forth, a real powerhouse of capability across that commercialization spectrum. And then we have our Inizio Biotech practice, and that really encompasses all of our different functions and enabling bespoke targeted solutions for those organizations who are moving really quickly, have got innovative assets coming to market, and who need a very specific set of resources that as an overarching organization we can provide, and really ensuring that we're as easy to work with as a combined platform for those particular organizations at that step on their path. And together we are more than 10,000 staff across 35 different countries. A huge proportion of our staff have got scientific degrees, further degrees, and we're lucky enough to have a huge staff of nurses and allied healthcare professionals who are on board with us. We work with everyone. So it's easier to say who we don't work with than who we do work with. And we have got MSAs and partnerships across all of the top 20 pharma and many beyond that. And together we have got more launch expertise than any other organization. And again, as a single platform, we can provide seamless access to whatever functional expertise at whatever scale and across whatever geography our clients need. When we think about not just our role as the medical division, but also our role across all of the Inizio functions, it really is end to end from preclinical all the way through to launch and beyond. And actually, as a medical division, we're really important for the organization because we get in earlier than all of our other divisions, and we stay as long or longer than any other part of the organization. And there we can have a huge influence, not just from a business perspective, but we're getting involved in really the hard end of some decisions, whether it's around working with key opinion leaders to try and characterize new mechanisms of action, or how we really define the unmet need and standard of care, and what we need to do as a medical community in order to further standard of care and ensure patients have the access to and required solutions that they need. But we stay with the asset sometimes longer than our client partners. So many of our writers and account professionals really stay with assets throughout their entire life cycle. And again, being part of an asset's success and knowing how many patients and families an asset has touched all the way through its clinical development and beyond is something that we hold really dear in medical. And for many of us, we sort of define in a lot of ways our careers by what medical innovations we've been involved in, and certainly ensuring that we do our bit, that we do whatever we can, the most we can do in order to bring those assets to as many different patients as possible. But we also join up and we work hand in hand with our colleagues from other functions. We love working with our marketing communications colleagues, and we have a long legacy of doing that, both within the Huntsworth world and also within the Ashfield world. And many of our teams really combine, particularly when we get into phase 3, working towards launch, and then that really important window post-launch. We can work as a multidisciplinary team in order to bring all of the different service and skill sets together that our clients need in order to maximize the potential of their particular assets. And now, as we think about all of Inizio and what we can do, really it's limitless. We can bring together all functions, all capabilities, and ensure that we're all working together as we do within our family in order to ensure that we're taking away any barriers that our clients could come up against in bringing those skill sets and expertise that they need in order to maximize the potential of their asset and ensure patients get access to that asset when they need it most. And with that, I'll hand over to Dan.
Brilliant, thanks Elaine. So I guess that gives you a very quick overview of Inizio as a whole. What I'm going to try and do now is talk a little bit about Inizio Medical, and particularly the questions we keep getting asked so far. So I'm going to preempt the questions and try and answer some of those. So if we click onto the next slide. Really the first thing we thought about, so we've been thinking about this for a few months, and we're really trying to think about what does scale mean in our industry? And what we often see is that scale doesn't equate to driving our industry forward. Often MedComms is a small part of a very large, or medical is a small part of a very large organization, and therefore doesn't have the responsibility. That's not the case here at Inizio, where we delight in telling everyone that medical is the most important in our group. I'm sure the others will disagree, but we reckon so. And then the other part of scale is holding agencies, where it's not a collaborative scale, it's a scale for the sake of scale. So we really wanted to think, what if we could put this together in a way that really allows us to leverage that scale? And that's what we've done. We brought into the best MedComms in our opinion in the industry. So ApotheCom, Ashfield, Nucleus Global are brilliant brands, brilliant teams who deliver excellently to clients already. There's no reason for us to stop that. What we want to do is take that and build on it, augment those cultures, augment those leaderships, really help them build upwards rather than trying to bash them together. So we are not intending to move our MedComms companies into one cohesive whole. We're going to run ApotheCom, Ashfield and Nucleus completely separately and make sure that we help them build. But what we can do is we can look at the areas of collaboration. We can look at the areas where we can actually move the industry forward by moving all of those forward. And we're thinking of that in terms of, in essence, specialized services, which traditionally have sat in the MEDiSTRAVA and MedEvoke groups, which is how do we build data and analytics into our everyday work? How do we build better AI into our everyday work? How do we make sure that value and patients are considered at the same time as clinical data with our clients? So how do we add value by bringing all these together? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run the 3 groups of MedComms agencies, but we're going to really augment all of them with higher investment in data and analytics, AI, and all those other areas. So that's the structure we're thinking. The other side of the structure and the collaboration is thinking, how do we learn from each other where we can? So making sure we maintain firewalls, making sure we maintain compliance, but actually, why don't we take the best of all of them? You know, ApotheCom have been a fantastically entrepreneurial group who have really built some amazing AI solutions. How do we take them across? Ashfield have Make It Matter, a real social purpose that they bring together, a lot of experience, as Elaine said, in how they interact with other parts of Inizio. How do we learn from that? And Nucleus, with their employee-led CSR initiatives, really driving DE&I forward, and also initiatives like Orbit, which is our internal agency for people looking to get back into the workforce, looking for a more flexible way of working. How do we bring that across? So the idea is to take the best of everything, but allow the companies to drive themselves forward. And the reason for that is choice. We've heard from both of our teams and our clients that they want choice. They don't want one massive organization that feels the same. They want the ability to take a career path through the various parts of this. Our clients want to be able to have slightly different cultures and expertises to choose between. So we don't want to take away choice for people. We just want to really give them more support as they drive their career across the Inizio and Inizio Medical family. So if we drop onto the next slide, this is the scale that Elaine has talked about. 2,000 staff, more than, and these are pure medical specialists. These are medical MedComms specialists. So absolutely dwarfing anything else in the industry. 700 PhDs, PharmDs, and global. Of course, we're global in the current environment with flexible working and making sure that we're just getting the best people in, and a huge number of clients as well. And I think, the thing that Elaine mentioned and we're all very passionate about is how do we actually leverage that scale to overcome the biggest challenges we have in the industry? We all know that there's not enough staff in the industry, and that's driving a lot of challenges for resource. Well, between Allegro and Academy, we're bringing over 100 new entrants into the market every single year. We need to actually double down on that and find new talent sources to make sure that we have a sustainable industry. We also need to do much better in DE&I. We're not a very inclusive industry, getting better slowly, but we've got a lot of work to do. And again, we need to use our scale and our ability to invest to really lead the way there. And ultimately, what we want to do is make sure that Inizio works for everyone. Our employees get that career choice, they get that acceleration, they get that ability to really drive their own career, and we just are supporters to that drive. Our clients want us to be able to take the experiences we're learning from across all of these different people, all these different accounts, all the innovations, and bring them forward. And of course, the industry really does need all players, and that's a little plea out there at the moment. We've all got to work together to make sure we're driving a sustainable industry, because the way we're going at the moment, is not the most sustainable way I've ever seen. So we need to really work together to make sure that we're thinking about what our industry looks like 5, 10, 15 years from now, as Elaine said, for the next generation. So that's where we are. That's what we're looking to do. And I'll hand over to Andrew, and he'll talk through a little bit more the employee proposition.
Thank you very much, Dan. In many ways, I'm probably going to repeat a lot of what Dan has said, but it absolutely is the right thing to do because it bears repetition. And I know in our industry, a lot of people, most of us will talk about reaching career goals. But what I'm going to talk about in the next couple of minutes is some of the amazing things that we've got that are now connected that will, I think, truly get to that point. So next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Elaine. What have we got in terms of this being an amazing business? When you look, as Dan has already sort of mentioned, we've got Academy and Allegro, which are, in many ways the leaders of that particular entry-level program. So those connected now, and in terms of frictionless movement potentially between those particular programs into our business with all the opportunities and choices that brings, that's an incredibly exciting prospect for us. And then further, more senior development through things like Excel and just our incredible L&D curriculum that comes from 2 big businesses and the others within the group that just mean connected. It's an incredible learning opportunity for anyone in our business. We've got huge commitment and the power to deliver on that in terms of well-being and mental health, which is hyper-critical just in the world, but never mind in an industry like ours, which, as I say, is so important to us. We're always pushing to improve as well. So we've launched our Atlas program just recently, which adds so much to our other development activities and our curriculum. So things that are already happening are now connected. And we also, really do listen to employee voice. We've got surveys and employee resource groups, which just give us that ability to hear what's going on. So next slide, Elaine, if you wouldn't mind. Again, you've seen these numbers, but for me, there's almost a kind of multiplication between those 4 boxes. Because that gives us an incredible opportunity to provide boundaryless careers and the experiences that can come from those things. Those numbers of staff across those number of strong brands, global presence with active clients in so many different therapy areas. It's an incredible equation that I think has now come together. So we can move to the next slide, Elaine, if you wouldn't mind. So what is that equation? Well, as Dan touched upon, the combination of our activity across social media just means we're able to tell our story better. You'll hear a lot more from us, so look out for us. We can obviously leverage a huge alumni network, and we can look towards being best in class in terms of how we bring people into our business, not just people currently in the industry, and I'll build out on that in terms of grassroots and people who aren't aware of our industry. That's the reach that I think this equation gives us. I've already mentioned Allegro and Academy and the huge reach of hundreds of new colleagues joining us, but I know those guys in those teams working in Allegro and Academy are already looking at how we reach out to underserved communities and others. And in terms of best development programs, again, now connected, now available for people who join our company. Pretty incredible equation that we've got together. So next slide, Elaine. Just building a little bit on that equation, the shared values that I think our industry has, but certainly joining us together in terms of what I mentioned before about communities, the underserved, people who maybe didn't consider any aspect of medical communications as a career opportunity, be it at that school to A level to university point of view, is now an incredible sort of place that we can get involved in. And I think, mentoring programs that we already have in play just scale up massively for us as we join those brands together. And I think, as I say, we talk about scale, but actually it's now about choice and opportunity. So I think we can definitely, as our business, now look towards reimagining how we, what work in medical communication really is. What does it feel like? What are the experiences? And this connection brings us that opportunity to do it. And, you know, given that equation of so many people, so many brands, so many clients, so many therapy areas, fundamentally development pathways now for us, it can be up, it can be across, it can be within teams, it can be in the job that someone wants to do for many, many years. But the fact is that choice is now unlimited. So next slide, which may be the final one for me. It's an incredibly exciting future that together we can deliver. I think now I'm passing back to you, Elaine, just to sum up our commitments to the industry.
Thanks, Dan and Andrew, and really it is around our commitment. Our commitment to you, I think we have this scale. Our commitment is we will use this scale for good, and not just the good of our business, but the good of the industry. I think that legacy piece is critical to all of us, and really does unite all of the leadership that we've brought together as part of Inizio, and also what we stand for as industry leaders in terms of what we feel that is on us to really achieve and help to support. And with that, it is really about supporting those leaders of the future. We will back you in your career. So your success is our success. Everyone's success then furthers the industry forward. We will have your back. We will support you in terms of being able to develop your own skills, create new skills, and unlock that potential, not just for you as individuals, but for the entire business. We will also commit to having a sustainable talent base. We cannot have our rate limiting step being that we don't have enough resource or capacity. It needs to be, we can solve that. Our challenges should be, how do we move quickly enough to keep up with scientific innovation, not how do we have enough people in our industry. And that's on us. Again, we can change that. So it is looking at making sure that we overcome some of those huge barriers and challenges. We set some of those ourselves in terms of some of the high bars that we put in place to join our industry, as well as making sure that we are doing whatever we can to enable people to stay within our industry and not feel at certain points of their own life cycle that they have to drop out, that suddenly an agency becomes not compatible with life. Again, that's on us, and we absolutely commit to backing you throughout your entire career, not just at the start of your career. And that's across everyone who could enjoy, everyone that could benefit from a career within this amazing industry that we're in. And we also commit to accelerating innovation, but also applying innovation that's in the real world and bringing it into medical communications. We will search out, explore, experiment, and bring those in to our industry, again, to help to the sustainability piece, but also to ensure that how we work is as exciting and productive as possible, to ensure that every single effort that our great people put into work is really maximized through use of technology, different systems, processes, and ways of working. Again, it's on us to ensure that we're really maximizing all of those opportunities to unlock the potential of our business, but also to unlock all the potential of individuals that are currently in the industry and those who could join us and really benefit from a career within medical agency, medical communications. And with that, Peter, I'll hand back over to you. I'm excited to hear what questions people have for us, and really open to answering as many of those questions as we possibly can, both now within the discussion, but also to keep that dialogue going. We're all open. You can reach us on LinkedIn, you can reach us by email, and we'll try and help you navigate whatever questions you have and to see our commitment through.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. Let's lose the slides and let's open this up for questions. I've been told anything goes, so those of you in the audience, please do feel free and use either of the two chat boxes. You've got a chat box or you've got a Q&A box. Send us your questions and comments, and for the next quarter of an hour or so, we'll just weave those into the conversation. And none of this is rehearsed, we're just winging it, okay? So let's enjoy ourselves. Can I actually start by asking you individually to tell us a little bit about your personal stories? Because I think that would be interesting. You sort of skipped that bit, but Elaine, can I start with you? And just tell us a bit about your background and how you've come up through MedComms.
Do you know, I probably share the same background as many people within medical communications. Sure. I started off as a scientist. I was a psychologist, did a PhD, worked in the NHS for a couple of years, moved to London, realised that a career in the NHS and living in London weren't compatible, and fell into medical communications at that point. I started an amazing company called PerXL, and I have got colleagues today still that I had back in the day when I was at PerXL, and really sort of moved through the ranks in terms of medical writing, as many people have done. Back in probably the early 2000s, I started my own agency called Litmus as part of an overarching PR company called Chandler Kiko. I was really lucky that I worked with founders and owners of a business that really did support young talent who wanted to do something. And I was incredibly lucky, but that really has transpired. I feel as if now it's on me. I had that help and that hand up, as it were, when I was at that sort of emerging part of my career, and it's on me now. I want to help others to do exactly the same. So that's my story.
Excellent. Okay, no, that's great. I just think it's nice to get the personal background. Dan, go on, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, so similar start, I guess. Finished my PhD and thought it would be nice to go and live somewhere else. Found a job in Amsterdam. Well, actually, it was outside Amsterdam. They lied to me, but I thought it was Amsterdam. And then went to that and turned up on day one, not really understanding what it was, but it was a medical writer role. And then I just grew up there, had amazing luck and opportunities along the way, which I think is a big part of everyone's career, is making sure that the opportunities are there. It's like we're passionate to make less about luck and more about structure and thought going forward, and worked for a variety of different public companies, big holding agencies, ran companies in both of those environments, and then came over via the Nucleus group about 7 years ago into a regional role, then a global CEO role, and now obviously the privilege of the role I have now.
Excellent. Okay. And Andrew, I mean, you've been, I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been in MedComms more like 5 years or so. You had a wider experience beforehand, but again, just paint the picture.
Sure, no problem. I am the odd one out from Dan and Elaine. I've got a personal interest in science, but certainly no training or particular advanced education in it. But I think, as I say, I'd previously worked in big companies like Centrica, so 26,000 employees, very corporate, then into private equity-backed businesses of all things corporate, commercial washing machines. So odd that was, but fundamentally what you see the same things, which is that, you know, people in organizations deserve to be treated a certain way, and it makes a difference how you do that. So joining the medical communications industry with Ashfield about, like you say, 5-6 years ago was in a way life affirming, because it kind of realized that an industry that is under the radar from someone who comes from outside the industry, what a fantastic place to develop a career. There's so many scientists out there who maybe don't even know that this industry exists. So what was so exciting about it was being able to sort of get a chance to open that up to people and see actually the end result of the work that all the guys who work in our industry do in terms of patients and outcomes and such. So like I say, life affirming to move into it, but yeah, certainly a very different background to many people on the call today.
Excellent. But I'd like to come back to it, but I mean, I'm going to lead in with you, Andrew. I mean, in the 5 years you've been with us, there's been a lot of change, hasn't there, in the business? Yeah,
I mean, as I say, certainly my experience with Ashfield, you know, we've been through many things. I think in terms of just opening up, you know, as we did with Allegro, being able to sort of get closer into universities, being able to, you know, really develop relationships with them, I think has changed the career paths for many people who perhaps wouldn't have come into that. As I say, I won't go through the kind of changes that happened internally that I was sort of part of with Ashfield, but then you move through to Ashfield Health, where we launched Make It Matter, which was then sort of, you know, brought into Inizio as well. So yeah, huge change, and I think more change to come, but that's exciting, right? And I think exactly, as I said, being at the forefront of this with Inizio just gives us more excitement to come, you know.
Exactly. And I guess, Elaine, Dan, you like me have been around a while. I mean, the business of MedComms is just so different now, isn't it, than it was when we started. Let me come back to that, because I'd quite like to explore and hear some of your insights into how that's changing. Let's just stick with some of the specifics at the moment about your new umbrella organization and how it's going to work and so on. And I'm going to, I did actually note it down myself, just you covered all, you mentioned a few bits of jargon in there and things, and the one that I noted down is the one that Darlene's asked about. Just cover it off. Actually, it was Andrew, I think, that said something about the Atlas program, and you just sort of said of Atlas, and we didn't know what Atlas was. So just cover that one off.
Yeah, apologies for that. And look, in many ways, it's a development program, but I think it's the focus. It's the focus that particular program gives, right? It's at the moment launched in our Nucleus business. It's the focus it gives to what we mean by leadership in our particular industry, right? And I think some of the mechanisms we're using for people to experience learning what it means to be a leader. And look, lots of businesses will do this, but it's got a unique take on it. And some of the activities we're giving or making people go through in terms of the more commercial aspects of what we do. The CEO challenge, for example, is not just a Shark's Den or a kind of apprenticeship thing. It's much more deep and involved. So you know, if anyone wants any more information, my email I think will appear, and I'd love to have sort of separate conversation with it. So it's a development program, but it's got a unique take on things. And as I say, please reach out to me because I can illustrate that a bit more through other means, you know.
Okay, so Atlas, a development program aimed at the more senior people, and then I think if I was following you, Excel is a program that's aimed at middle level. And again, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to be in any way misleading, but you both, a couple of you, maybe all of you, mentioned Academy and Allegro, and you were talking about the fact that now you're sort of able to sort of allow some frictionless movements on. But just to be clear and help people orientate themselves, yeah. Allegro is the Ashfield program, and Academy is the Nucleus program. Yeah, correct. Just so that we can keep those sort of
no, that's absolutely right. And as I say, we're starting to see how we can work more closely together and collaborate, because we're at the early stages of this journey, but that's what's exciting about it. Just to qualify the Excel piece, yeah, that's mid-level, but much more technically focused, skill set focused for the job. Atlas is more developmental in terms of leadership. So there is a subtle difference there, but an important one to make out. Excel is at the moment in Ashfield, but again, we would be looking at how we can make that for all of our Inizio and medical employees as well. So it's connecting them, which is the exciting part about this, so people can move through a pathway should they choose to, and that's the opportunity. I think that certainly in my world comes to play.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess at this stage it's just important to be a little bit careful, because people will have got messages from the different companies and so on. There's going to be a certain amount of just making sure they can catch up. Apart from anything else, remembering how to pronounce Inizio. So I'm going to ask the stupid question, and I'm going to throw that at Elaine. How did you come up with the name like Inizio, and what's it mean?
You know, we didn't come up with the name. Our amazing marketing communication colleagues did. So, do you know, the most beautiful thing about Inizio is it was homegrown. We've all worked together. We started to work together over the last 6 months or so, but the brand really emerged from within, and it does stand for new beginnings. And really, it did feel like that. You know, we've got a huge legacy. Not just within medical, but across all of our different functions, all our different organizations. But as we come together, it really is that platform and opportunity to do something different. You have a huge amount of enthusiasm. When we had everyone together in Philadelphia back in, I think, March, and we hadn't seen human beings together for about 3 years. So that opportunity to come together, but the amount of passion, enthusiasm it was palpable in the room, and everybody is really sort of, you know, their mission is, we need to use this to do something amazing. And that really, I think that's really encapsulated within that brand, new beginnings, using it to really empower and to, you know, inform and to reimagine what the future could be.
Okay. I always think that's interesting. I mean, I've set up several named businesses, and I've gone from, there have been times when I've spent ages trying to think of what the name is, and there's other times when it's just like, oh, I'm just going to go with that and see what happens, you know. And I just find that interesting. And your level, there must have been some discussion around that sort of thing, which might have been quite interesting. There's been a couple of questions come in, and I guess again, there's sort of obvious stuff. You've made the point, which is important, I guess, important to understand. Your brands, Nucleus, ApotheCom, Ashfield, very strong brands now, and you're strengthening and supporting the brands rather than diluting. There's a couple of questions coming in, I suppose, which are getting at, well, at the end of the day, that sounds like, but how do you, and maybe this is at Dan, you know, I mean, there's going to be management issues in terms of how people can either move between those, or works move between those, or how, I'm not asking the question the right way, but there is a management issue when you're running a group of strong brands like that. Just reflect a little bit on it, I guess, and what your ambitions are.
Yeah, I mean, that's about not putting barriers in our own way, right? There isn't actually any issues with it if we approach it the right way. And this is getting back to what I talked about, the collaboration piece. For us, that is absolutely paramount as leaders, and we'll sign up to it on an Inizio level, but also, you know, it's what we're embedding through Atlas, is collaboration for our employees and for our team members is really important. And so giving them the opportunity to do that. We've been together 6 months roughly, and the leaders across those 3 businesses have been together 6 months, and we were fierce competitors, right? Like we would see each other walking in and out of pitches for years, trying to get one up on each other. And it's been absolutely fantastic to watch how quickly those individuals have come together. So if we look at the leaders across all of them, they've really come in with an open mind to collaboration and what it's going to do for their business. So yes, sometimes they're going to give something up, but it will drive the whole business forward, and they'll get much more back in the long run. And what I found is the value sets of the 3 companies are very aligned. So although we've got different cultures, although we've got different sort of strengths and weaknesses, the value sets were really aligned, and that's what's allowed us to do it. So our goal for any individual who's looking to move around is to make that not a scary conversation. And I've had a number of them already. It's we want you to have that conversation. We want you to have that conversation every week with your manager, where you're saying, okay, here's where I'm at in my career. This is what I'm looking for next. And they can take that away and make it happen, rather than it coming to a point where someone's really at the end of their tether and they want to have a change. And then it's far more likely they'll go and take a gamble somewhere where it's not as controllable or well thought out as we can make it. So that's one of our non-negotiables, is that we're going to work collaboratively in that way for the benefit of our teams.
Okay, excellent. And we've had a number of webinars, discussions about this. It's there's a wide variety of MedComms agencies and organisations out there, and this last year, 18 months, has been quite exciting, if that's the right word, in terms of people coming together and so on. But those value sets are really important, and it's not saying one's right and one's wrong, but you do need an alignment of those value sets in order to make all this work. So that's interesting. I'd like to go a little bit wider if I can. Just checking the questions over. I noticed Anonymous has said he or she is sold, so they're going to sign up with you. I don't know who Anonymous is, but anyway, they're sold. Just go wider, the general MedComms business. And Dan, you talked about, and I think I'm quoting you reasonably accurately here, diversity, equity, inclusivity, so on. You want a more diverse workforce. We're not a very diverse workforce. Let's just touch on this a little bit in a moment, because it's easy to say. I mean, I think it's obvious that we're not. It's easy to say. What does anybody, what does you as an organisation really going to be able to do, or what are you going to try and do, and what are you sort of suggesting other people can try and do? I think there's an interesting discussion around that. Maybe there's a whole webinar in it, so let's not go too far down it. But I'm interested that you said that, and I'd just be interested in what your thoughts are and what you're going to try and do as an organisation to try and maybe change that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many challenges that we have to overcome, and it's frustratingly slow to do so, but we've got to be better. So for us, it's about educating ourselves, being the best we can be internally. We're in the process of finalising the hire of an Inizio Medical DE&I lead, who will help us drive that and make sure that it's someone who sits at our senior leadership and holds us to account, and that's a big part. But also, a load of the biases that we're struggling with are embedded way before we get to the entry level into MedComms. Science, further education, all of these things are driving biases there. So we've got to think about how we go, not just preaching to the converted, not just all moving forward within our industry, but how do we help support more diversity earlier in the chain in order to have those people ready and knowing about MedComms and coming in. So it's a massive job, and again, it's one where we've got a scale and we've got a voice. Currently, we have a voice through some of our industry societies as well. So I'm currently the chair of ISMAP. We've got members on boards at MAPS and things like that. So using those, HCA, I know, are really interested in this and going to be working on it. So it's working together, and it's one of those things that's not tribal. It's just we're not where we need to be. It's going to take us a while to get to where we need to be. So let's get started now. And a lot of people have started. It's unfair to say there's not a lot of great efforts going on broadly across the industry, but we can't sit back and be passive. We have to be really active.
It sort of starts with acknowledging it, though, doesn't it? But the point you're making is very important. You know, you have to go right back to the early stages, and it's easy to say, but you know, how do we go into, as MedComms community, how do you go into schools? You know, you need to go back to that, you know, and how many people in schools, I think of my kids, you know, would be terribly interested if we went in and talked about MedComms, you know, but there's a huge question to be answered there, which we're only a small part of. Go on, Andrew.
Yeah, I just want to add on that, because I think, you know, given my newness relative to the industry, and therefore worked in lots of other kind of cultures, there's an altruism at the heart of medical communications people, right? There's a huge desire to give something back. So I think, you know, there's the opportunity to get in there, because we have a workforce across our sector that want to do things like that, right? So it's how we harness that for the good. The timeline is long, right? Because obviously you're talking about perhaps that stepping stone from sort of GCSEs to A levels to university, and then onwards from that. But I think that's why Allegro and Academy and others, that's the sort of natural segue through. If you take what we have anyway in terms of value set, people want to do this thing and want to make that social impact, community impact. So it's just an incredibly powerful sort of combination of things that come together, which I think can really truly make a difference. But if you make it about patients and outcomes, that probably engages that school age, university age population, or pre-university age population, rather than about medical communications itself. So some really enticing things there that certainly we're looking at already, you know.
And you know, I mean, one of the things I get a bit excited about is you know, the working practices have changed a lot in the last couple of years. It's accelerated. I know we were going in this direction of flexible work, but it's really accelerated in the last couple of years. And that opens up all sorts of opportunity to be more inclusive to people, either geographically or in terms of physical abilities and so on and so forth. But again, it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to see it actually happening and see it actually coming through. So I just think that's all potentially quite exciting, and it'll just be interesting to watch what happens. Elaine, I'm going to pull you in at the moment, because I think you're the one that mentioned sustainability. I'm not sure, maybe I've got that wrong, but I'm going to put you on the spot anyway. Sustainability is talked about a lot at the moment. You were talking about sustainability being an important part of the values and so on. Again, just a minute or two of reflecting, because I think things have changed dramatically in the last couple of years, again, have made people think a lot. Events, you know, do we need to fly to New York for lunch and back again in a day, and things like that? You know, I mean, just from your point of view, do you have a view on how the business is changing and how we can embrace the principles that we should all be embracing in a sensible, practical way?
There is, and there's also a lot we can do as an organisation to play our part. But sustainability, we did learn that the world doesn't come to a grinding halt if we can't go onto a plane to go to a meeting, that we can have very effective virtual meetings. Now, that's not to say that it replaces everything. We've seen the first ASCO back in real life, and people, you know, there's a lot to be had around the coming together of professionals. It's not just sitting in the lecture halls and reading the posters. It's about having that dialogue, whether it be in the corridors or over dinner. So it is around getting a balance. But there's things that we can do, you know, within our day-to-day in order to ensure that we're not contributing unnecessarily, that we are taking as much out from a perspective as putting in. Again, sort of, we have huge commitments, and this is one of the great things about being part of a platform like Inizio, where we've all come together with some common values, and we're all committed to those. So together, for instance, again at this Philadelphia meeting, all the leaders in the organization came together, and we in that room decided that from there on then we would stop the use of single-use plastics in every single one of our offices. When we came together to, you know, we've launched a new company, so of course we're going to have lots of merchandise. Of course we are. Who wouldn't want to do that? But again, sort of with an angle of, let's not pollute the planet while doing it. So part of the sourcing of some of that merchandise, because we want all of our teams to have, you know, water bottles and whatever other sort of thing that they might have or carry, to do so in a sustainable way, because we know in our our people, if we send them a pile of stuff wrapped in plastic, you know, they're not going to be happy with that. So again, there's lots of things that we can do. That's small things. I think we risk when we make it so big and we look at the big challenge and we try and attack that, we feel helpless. And I think it's taking it back to what small things can we do and what can we action now? And then thinking about our scale, we do that over 10,000 people. We're making an impact, not just in what we're not doing, but contributing actively. So again, we have a huge mantra within the organization, which is all around what if. What if we were to do something different? What if we were to look at it in this way? Or what if we were to change this one small thing? And that's that big commitment. And again, it's that thread that goes through the whole of the organization in terms of each small part can make a meaningful difference. And we're committed to each small part.
Excellent. Okay, look, we're running over time as usual, but so I ought to draw a line to this. Some of those topics we talked about, we could talk about, you know, each of them for quite a long time. I guess the message that I'm keen to come out of meetings like this is that we're thinking about it, we're talking about it, we're, you know, organizations like yours are working very hard, and it's a very, we keep coming back to the same point, it's a very, very attractive business to be part of, and that's what we want to say. So, you know, MedComms is booming, but it's interesting, the various, you know, the small businesses, the 5, the 10, the 50, the 20, 50, 100 type scale organizations, and you now a massive group of people coming together under a common umbrella of Inizio. So lovely to hear the story. I'm sure there's much more we could talk about. I would encourage the people watching us now, but also the video later, you know, they can contact you via LinkedIn. You're all happy with that, aren't you? So that's the easy way of doing it. Or on your slides, you had your email addresses and so on. You were part of the point of these things, webinars, is to get people to connect with each other. And I'm very keen on that. So please do, anybody watching this, reach out. Huge thank you to you. I'm going to suggest we just draw a line there and everyone gives us a little wave and we'll cut the recording now. Those of you watching us, we'll still be here for another 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We can carry on talking. If you're interested in what I'm doing and MedComms networking and so on, medcommsnetworking.com, lots of things going on. But thank you very much to you three for coming along and talking about your plans at Inizio. And as I say, please, anybody reach out to you and learn more. So on that note, I'm going to stop the recording and just ask you to say goodbye and give us a little wave. So bye-bye.